welcome to the podcast. It's lovely to have you on. I will let you introduce yourself to everyone and just start by telling them a little bit about you.
Okay, so my name is Katherine Moloney. I'm a private pilot. I have a helicopter licence and a fixed wing licence, and I'm also founder and CEO of ElevateHerAviation.
Yeah, absolutely. We were chatting all about it in the car over here, weren't we? And I'm really excited to have this conversation again. Have it again.
Thank you
and
so
this
much
time,
for having me on here.
No, honestly, it's so lovely. And like we were saying, in the car, like the whole point of this podcast is to help educate, inspire and empower women from all different angles. And I really do think that is multifaceted. It comes through taking care of our health, but then it also comes through, what we're actually doing with our lives and
absolutely.
How we spend our time and, what is possible for us. So can you share with everyone a little bit more about how you got into piloting and all of that stuff? Because it's not something you hear every day, is it?
No. And my journey into aviation was a little bit different. A lot of people have the story of, I've been looking at planes since I was like 3 years old and always wanted to be a pilot. So I don't have that story. Mine was a little bit different. So my dad's a pilot and I was always surrounded by aviation, but I had no interest at all whatsoever. I never thought it was something that I could do. I don't know why I thought that, looking back, but I had like this maverick figure in my head that I just couldn't relate to. And I just thought there's no way that I was that kind of person that could be a pilot. So when we were at school even, and we did aptitude testing, it came back saying I should actually apply for the RAF as a pilot. I was absolutely shocked and going, no. Still, there's no way I could do that. I don't believe you. So I threw it away and I didn't go to uni. I went and did other jobs and I did a few different other jobs. And then I ended up working on an airport, on Soar Airport, picking and packing in a warehouse. And that's where I kind of became more curious about aviation because, I was surrounded by it, but I was really looking at it this time and going, oh my goodness, this actually looks pretty cool. So I spoke to my dad about it and he said, you know what, just have a trial lesson. Worst comes to the worst. You have fun, and just try it, give it a go. So I did. I went down to a helicopter flying school because I thought, oh, helicopters are cool, give that a go. And it was that lesson that completely changed my life. So it was the action of actually flying myself that I thought, oh my goodness, I'm flying a helicopter. This is the coolest thing ever. How had I not seen this before? Like, how had I not considered it? So I went on to do my license. So I started when I was 18, got my license when I was 19. And then I flew helicopters for 4 years. But, one of the amazing things about aviation is that it's so multifaceted. There's so many different aspects of it, especially in general aviation. And I became really curious about, flying fixed wing, flying tailwheel, going upside down, doing aerobatics, all the other things you can do. So I had another trial lesson, again, just took myself down and I was like, hey, can somebody please take me up in a fixed wing aircraft? And again, went on to do my license. So I got my fixed wing license in 2022.
Wow.
Yeah.
So there is so many different parts.
So many
different parts of it. And obviously your business is all about helping women in aviation. And, when you started getting into aviation, did you have like moments of doubt where you were thinking, could I actually do this?
Yeah, absolutely. And learning to fly is one of those really funny journeys. So while you're doing it, you're like, oh my God, this is so hard. You're doing all the exams, you're doing the training. Every time you go up, you go, oh my goodness, why am I not getting this? And there's lots of really important, certainly, things you have to cover, but also very challenging elements. And while you're doing it, you're going, this is so hard, man. Like, how am I going to get through it? But then when you land, you look back and you see how far you'll come and you go, okay, I'm struggling with this now, but there was a time where I didn't even know how to turn the damn thing on. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's funny when you look back and, like, there are milestones that this is exacerbated with. So, for instance, your first solo. So the first time that your instructor gets out the aircraft and they go, off you go, do a circuit on your own and you land and you go, oh my goodness, a few months ago, I couldn't even take off, and now I'm flying on my own. And it's a bit like that cognitive dissonance. Like you have to look at those key events and go, oh my goodness, I can actually do that. And it chips away at your believing you can't do it.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
But certainly, I mean, there are plenty of times where I landed and I was like, how am I ever going to do this? But you do. You do. Every single time. You know, as long as you keep going, if you keep showing up, it will happen.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And it taught me a lot about myself. A lot about resilience, a lot about confidence. And it kind of taught me a little bit how to get out of my own way. You know, I'm definitely my own worst enemy.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't think I'm alone in that.
No, definitely not. I think a lot of women especially, like we are our own enemies in a lot of different ways. So what do you feel, you know, flying has sort of given you in that sense? Like, how do you think, you know, you say you learnt a lot about yourself, like what does that sort of look like?
Yeah, I mean, it taught me I'm a lot more capable than I thought I was. And again, it's not all down to me, you know, I had amazing instructors, and particularly one of my fixed wing training, who he would not let me accept anything less than the best for myself, you know. He was like, you can do this better. And that attitude really helped me a lot, you know, because I was quite happy just getting by doing something, being, oh yeah, well, you know, I can do it. And he goes, no, but you can't, that's not the best you can do.
Yeah.
You know, and having him sat there, he was a really great guy. He was an ex-RAF instructor and he was an ex-Red Arrow actually. But he really taught me to look at myself in a different way and go, no, expect more from yourself because you can do more.
Yeah.
You know, so it taught me a lot about that. It taught me a lot about resilience. You know, you have a bad flight, you land and you think, oh, I'm never going to do that again. But you have to,
I'm done.
you know, yeah, exactly. I mean, I remember one particular occasion I was going to fly in my helicopter training. I was doing a solo flight and it was just going wrong. Every single minute I was like, I cannot do this. And I landed the helicopter in the middle of the field and walked away.
Really?
I was like, I'm done. I'm never doing this again. But you do. You have to pick yourself up and go, you know, no, I'm going back. I can do this.
Yeah.
It taught me a lot about resilience. You know, and different things like that. But with Elevate Her, it's interesting because although it's very much about aviation, it's about STEM, it's about women in aviation careers, it's so much more about women and about empowerment and finding that confidence within yourself and finding that resilience and thinking, no, I deserve to be here.
Yeah.
And I can do it.
Yeah, 100%. And I think for a lot of women, they've probably, you know, not had that. You know, I certainly, growing up, I didn't have that that mindset or that belief in myself of like I can do things. Do you know what I mean? Like my mum always used to say, you're a quitter, like you quit everything, which I didn't. Like I didn't like school. Like I didn't like school. I didn't like, you know, that kind of like conventional, you know, the system. It just didn't work for me. So yeah, I think for a lot of women, they've not grown up with that encouragement or with that belief or with those the role models as well, which is
This
you know
is
a massive part of what you do is having those role models like in aviation, but equally, like you say, it's not just in that, it's in everything, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, role models, I think, is such a huge part of why there are so few women in aviation. Because there are some amazing women out there that I've met who are fantastic role models who were in the RAF, like, the first women that could fly jets in the RAF. Because women have only been allowed to fly jets and pilots in the RAF since, like, the 1990s.
Yeah.
So they're still around, those women, you know, and they're incredible. But meeting them, I was like, wow. If I'd met you when I was 10, it would have changed my life.
Yeah.
You know? And role models is something that we are very focused on doing, especially with social media, you know, putting those really strong female role models in STEM careers in front of young women and going, hey, this is what, you know, you could be her when you grow up.
Yeah.
There's so much power in that. And, you know, that is actually the reason I started Elevate Her, because all throughout my training, and I've been training for, you know, years and years and flying for years and years, and I never met another female pilot.
Really?
No, throughout my whole career, never another female instructor, examiner. I'd met one female air traffic controller and no female engineers. And I thought, there's got to be more of us out there, you know. So that's when it actually all started, because basically I decided to host an event. I hired out a room at Brighton City Airport, got a plate of sandwiches, and put out, I know, very rogue, and I put out just an open invitation to any women in aviation. I was like, please come, let's talk. Like, I want to meet you. And I was absolutely amazed that day that 40 women turned up. And the
Wow.
atmosphere was just electric. And I promise you, I was so scared. At 10 o'clock, when people were supposed to turn up, there was just me and my mum in the room. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh my God, this was a horrible idea.
Yeah.
But, you know, honestly, it worked out so well. And it was a complete chance that I'm so grateful that I took.
Yeah.
And those women completely inspired me that day. And I really did get that sense of, I want to be like you when I grow up. And that was really important. And, you know, that's not to detract from the amazing male instructors and mentors that I've had throughout my career, because I wouldn't be here without them. But there is a really different feeling with connecting with like-minded women in the same industry that you can share with, and you know, you've got similar experiences. So that was really powerful, and that's really what made me set up Elevate Her.
Yeah, absolutely. I think just having strong women around you is so important. I think women do need women. And I think, I don't know what it was like for you growing up, but like for me growing up, I was sort of taught or shown to see women as like competition, and I didn't have a lot of female friends, and like the female friends that I did have growing up were like, I'll never forget when I was probably about 6 or 7, and I was playing out with a couple of girls on my street, and like they were playing with dollies on the field, and I wanted to play with them, but they said that my dolly was annoying because it was being really loud and like crying, so they wouldn't play with me. So like my kind of I didn't have a positive relationship with women until probably very much the last like 5 years, where actually I've become more confident and happy with myself. And I never liked women, like I didn't, because I was like, women are bitchy, women don't like women, you know. And if I saw a woman who was like successful or attractive or, you know, had something, it would almost feel like she was taking it from me, like because she's got it, I can't have it. Versus now it's so totally different. Like for me, I love seeing women win. Like I love seeing women win. I love even women who do, you know, what I do. Do you know what I mean? Them doing well in, you know, if they're doing something
Doesn't
similar
take
to
it
me.
away from you.
No, exactly. And I feel like having that collaboration and support is so important, and you've really brought that into your business, is that collaboration and you know, bringing those women together, because we're not against each other.
No, absolutely. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And, you know, I was very fortunate. I went to, you know, a brilliant school, and I was in a girls' house. And I've never been like a girls' girl, you know, like really, you know, a bit like what you were saying. But, you know, we all got on with each other really well and respected each other and all the rest of it. But so there I didn't have a negative experience really. But moving into aviation, it was very much like, because I think there are so few of us, there is a bit of a feeling of, if you're in that position, there's not enough room for two of us.
Yeah.
You know?
Because there probably actually wasn't at that time.
There isn't, but that's a structural perception.
Yeah.
That's not reality.
Yeah.
That's not the truth.
Yeah.
The truth is that if you're good enough for the role, you can go anywhere.
Yeah.
You know, and, you know, definitely I think we need to change our attitude to thinking we can't just have, so we've got a board of directors here. There's more than enough room for like 3 women at least. You know what I mean? We don't have to just have one.
Yeah.
And you can help other women up with you. You know, we should never just be like, you know, I'm okay here, that's great. You know, see you guys later.
Yeah.
You know, we can always help each other up.
Yeah.
And it doesn't, like I said, doesn't take anything away from us at all. You know, seeing each other thrive in our industries, that's really important. And that creates a happier industry for everyone, not just for women, you know, for everybody. And everybody deserves to feel belonging, to feel empowered, and to feel strong in the choices that they've made and in their career.
Yeah.
And we should always help each other up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Always. You know, like I said, I've been very fortunate with, you know, my life, and I've been able to do some really great flying. You know, I'm very grateful for that. And you know, it would be easy for me just to keep doing what I'm doing, right? But honestly, it means a lot to me to be able to try and help anyone else up in any way that I can. It's not enough for me to just be like, oh, well, I'm okay, so that's fine.
Yeah.
You know, we should always, where we can, try and positively impact other people.
Yeah.
If we can.
Yeah, 100%. What are the biggest things in and obviously it's not, you know, obviously we're obviously talking specifically about aviation, but it's not just aviation, is it? Where we see, you know, we were talking about it in the car about, you know, kind of how, you know, women, we do face different challenges, and there is, you know, we do face challenges as women that, you know, men men don't, and we can't, deny that. It's very, very true. But, what are the challenges that you see women facing in aviation, besides, obviously, we spoke about like the lack of role models, which is so important, because like you say, if you don't see that someone else has done something, especially a woman, that is like, oh, well, maybe that isn't.
You can't be what you can't see.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And, there are a lot of different challenges. And, people love to say to me, there are no barriers for women in aviation. And that's true. The cockpit is gender neutral. The cockpit doesn't care.
Yeah.
The plane doesn't care who's flying it.
Yeah.
But the journey to it is not neutral, unfortunately. And while talent is distributed equally, opportunity is not. And I think this is kind of, again, it's difficult because there are so many different facets to this. But for instance, women in aviation careers, when we did our most recent research, under 50% of places where they work provided female uniforms. They, and even less than that actually had female toilets and sanitary facilities. It seems like small things, right?
Yeah.
But to me, that says you don't belong here.
Yeah, and you're an inconvenience.
Yeah, absolutely. And, we see it with a lot of other of our survey data. Like, for instance, over 85% of women have experienced sexism in the aviation industry. And, okay, these things may not seem like a big deal, but it screams you don't belong here.
Yeah.
And it's that overall attitude of, this was not built for you. Like, for instance, did you know that only 6% of women who apply for the RAF as a pilot will actually meet the physical requirements to sit in that aircraft?
Really?
Yeah, because the aircraft are not structured for us.
Yeah.
And that's nobody's fault, but they've got male engineers, male aircraft designers, right? And that's how these aircraft were designed and built.
Yeah.
So this is why it's important that we have more women in all aspects of aviation careers, so that you have a female aircraft designer who goes, hey, that might actually not work for someone who's 5'2".
Yeah, exactly. They won't be able to reach.
Yeah, exactly.
It.
And women are great. We're so resilient. We'll just get on with stuff, right? We'll make it work.
Yeah.
And a lot of the women that I speak to, especially about uniforms, they're like, oh, but it does kind of fit, or I had to get my own trousers, but it's fine.
Yeah.
But it's not fine.
No, it's not.
It's not. And it is, again, I don't want to make sweeping statements, because there are so many supportive men in the industry who are amazing. But the industry is not overwhelmingly designed to include women, and that's something that we're really tackling at the moment. And look, it's already better now than it was 5 years ago.
Yeah.
The fact that I'm even having these conversations at Elevate Her with the Department for Transport, with all kinds of people, shows the progress that we've made in such a short amount of time.
Yeah.
But it's 2024, and 4.7% of pilots being women is not enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not. And people can say, oh, women just aren't interested in aviation. They're not interested in the same way boys are, or men are. But the thing is that 30% of the industry is women.
Yeah.
But they're not in those key roles, which just shows a massive disconnect,
Yeah.
Even if you look at comparative careers like fashion, for instance, or automotive, it's almost 50-50. Between men and women, even in like the beauty industry, for instance. So
really?
I don't buy that whole girls uninterested.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
So there are a lot of challenges, and the way to resolve them, like we talk about, is around education. It's around role models.
Yeah.
It's around structural changes within the industry, and looking at keeping women in the industry, not just getting girls into it as well. But it is a complicated issue.
Yeah, absolutely. And why do you specifically want like more women in aviation? Like, for you, being a woman in aviation, why are you like, more women need to be doing this?
Yeah, that's a really, really good question. And for me, it does kind of a little bit selfishly come down to my own experience, because it helped me so much as a person.
Yeah.
It gave me that confidence. It made me feel amazing, you know? And aviation is amazing. Flying is amazing. It's an incredibly exciting industry, an innovative industry. It's, we're so far ahead, and even in terms of sustainability, we're very bad about talking about it, but, we have some of the most sustainable engines in the world created, and it's so innovative. There's so much excitement going on, and there's no reason why women shouldn't be involved in that.
Yeah.
And learning to fly, like I said, does so much for your confidence, does so much for your own self-belief. Even if a girl has a few lessons gliding, never goes into an aviation career, but goes, you know what, I had a great time and I flew that plane. That's enough for me.
I think you've already convinced me to give it a go, because we were talking, weren't we, in the car, like,
give it a go, why not?
Yeah, I'm a bit of a nervous flyer, but I think that comes back to like not having the control, and like you said, not knowing what is actually happening, because like statistically, I know like planes are like very, very safe, and you know, all of that stuff, but yeah, I think I know that if I was to do that, that would feel like a huge achievement, because in my head, I'm like, well, no, I don't.
It is a huge achievement.
Yeah.
It is, you know?
Yeah.
Like, even going up and taking off yourself or doing a bit of flying yourself, that is a huge achievement.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on.
Yeah.
You know? And it is an incredible thing to be able to do. And as well, it gives you such a different perspective on the world.
Yeah.
You know, to literally go up there, it's stunning, especially around here, you know, on the south coast. It's a beautiful area. And yeah, it is the most peaceful. It's freedom. I could go on about it for hours and hours that we don't have.
Yeah.
But, you know, I think you should give it a go.
Yeah.
Because why not?
I will. I will. What's it feel like when you're like, does it almost feel like you're meditating? Because obviously you've got to be so like present in the moment, because you've obviously got so much you're obviously doing or, you know, thinking about, but do you ever get kind of like lost in like the flow of it, if that makes sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially, you know, when you're learning, you are, every single thing you're doing, you're thinking about so
like when
much.
you learn to drive a car.
Oh my God,
it's like
yeah. You know, you're
clutch.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know, we have lots of checklists that we have to read out, but also to remember, if you're doing circuits, for instance. So you are so fully absorbed in it. It's knackering.
Yeah,
it's
I
absolutely knackering when you're learning, you know. But it's funny how your capacity increases. So, for instance, just flying in a straight line might be all-consuming for you when you start. You know, just keeping it at the same level, making sure all the engine instruments are in the right place, making sure everything's fine, looking around, make sure there's no other aircraft, checking that you're on the right radio, checking where you are in regards to the map, like that, or the chart even, you know, that might be all consuming for you initially, and then suddenly you're doing that automatically, and then you're speaking on a radio, and then you're looking at where you're going next, and then you're thinking about climbing because there's airspace there, or descending because there's airspace there, or, you know, it's funny how your capacity builds up, and then suddenly you're doing all of those things, and then it's not that big of a deal. It just becomes like a flow state. And then certainly, I mean, I'm not that experienced as a pilot in general, but I've got less experience in fixed wing than I have in helicopter. But certainly when I was flying helicopter very consistently, it was like I was putting it on.
Yeah.
It's like I was wearing it right.
Yeah.
You know? And that is a really amazing feeling.
Yeah.
You know? But again, it's amazing how much in fact, actually, that's quite a good point, like learning to hover. People always talk about learning to hover because it is one of the hardest things that you do. It's like patting your head, rubbing your tummy at the same time, plus doing a whole bunch of other things. Yeah, and doing the other, you know, it's a complete, you know.
I say like I know.
No, it's completely mind-boggling when you're doing it. And I remember thinking it probably takes people about 10 hours to learn to hover.
Yeah.
And you're sitting there and you're all over the place and you're like, what is happening? You know, you're going backwards and forwards and, you know, you're rocking and rolling, and then your instructor will take it and just be completely still.
Yeah.
You're like, what are they doing that I'm not doing? You're looking at them going, they're not moving.
Obi-Wan Kenobi.
How is it possible? And then suddenly, like that, one day you can do it, and then you can never not do it again.
Yeah.
And then you're thinking about it. You're like, okay, I'm hovering. I've got it.
Yeah.
Okay, it's good. I'm keeping it. And you're constantly doing that in your head. And then suddenly you're hover taxiing, you're stopping, you're talking on a radio, you're thinking where you're going next. And you're like, wow, at what point did my capacity increase to be able to do that, you know? It's quite an incredible, it's a very interesting experience from like a self-reflection point of view.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a lot of fun, and it's one of those things that as soon as you land, you're like, wow, I could do that better. Let's go up again.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh my God, I can imagine. I
fun.
love the whole idea of like you say, the kind of like stretching your capacity, because I imagine like you say, like I reckon like the first time I probably won't even be able to open the door. I'm like, how do I open the fucking door? Like, how do I do this? And like you say, you're just learning one thing at a time. And I think learning is, we were saying, like, I'm so passionate about education and learning and women learning. Obviously what I do is, you know, initially a lot of the time is about women learning about themselves, about you know, their bodies, about you know, reconnecting with like their intuition and all of that sort of stuff, which is so important. And you know, like you say, it's kind of like you're you're stretching your capacity that little bit at a time, because like you say, probably thinking about like going in a straight line is hard, and then you think about, right now I'm going to turn, and you know, you're just, like you say, stretching your capacity every single time. Absolutely. Which is amazing.
And it's so amazing to see how far you can stretch it.
Yeah.
You know, and you never stop learning. It's one thing flying, you never stop learning. Every single flight is a learning flight.
Yeah.
Every single time you learn something, you pick up something, you think, oh, I'm going to do that differently. Or, I mean, you know, a lot of my social media, and I video myself flying, and that's actually been really interesting for me to watch back.
Yeah.
Because I go, why am I doing that? You know, I could do that better on the radio, for instance. Like, I quite often record my radio and I listen to it back and I go, why am I speaking so fast? It sounds mental.
Yeah.
You know, so it's quite good for self-reflection, and you always learn something.
Yeah.
But yeah, the capacity is a really interesting point, and it's amazing how the more you learn, the more you want to learn as well. Because, you know, that happened for me with doing helicopters, and then I thought, oh my god, I'm missing out on so much. Like, I want to learn how to do that. And you know, you have a go at going upside down, and I was like, oh my god, I want to know how to do that.
Because you've gone on in the fighter jets, and or is it the Red Arrows?
No, so I was lucky. I flew with the Blades, which was a display team. They're disbanded now, but they're ex Red Arrows, and again, that was absolutely mental experience. You know, like, they were tumbling, and you know, oh wow, it was just
do like when you shut the engine off and you fall.
they
what
did
is that called?
That's a tail slide.
That's it.
But you know, they do all kinds of mental things, and I was so nervous going there. I was like, I could feel really unwell. You know? But I didn't. I loved it. And you know, it's opened up other things. Like, I volunteer with the Spitfires at Goodwood, and that's, you know, if you told me like 5 years ago I'd know how to do a bunch of stuff on a Spitfire and refuel, and you know, learn a lot about the engine and strapping people in and doing all the safety briefings, I would think you were nuts. I think that would not be the kind of thing I could do. But you can. It's all just learning. You know, like my dad always says to me, in this world there's only trained and untrained. You know, don't judge anyone because they either know how to do it and have been taught how to do it, or they haven't. That's the only difference.
Absolutely.
You know?
And that willingness to learn, and also I think the willingness to like make mistakes, because like, you're going to make mistakes, and I think you know, someone listening to this, they probably see this version of you now who's been like, how long have you been flying for?
8 years.
And they think like, they just see the finished product, but they don't see your first lesson, or you know, probably the amount of times you were like, I'm not going to do this, or you know, left the helicopter in the field, you know, cried over things, you know, all of that sort of stuff. People don't see that.
No, and you know, I think social media has been great for aviation in a way, because it's made it mainstream. It's put those role models out there. It's shown people how amazing it is. But in a way, for people who are already flying or who are learning, it actually can be quite negative, because people always post their best landings. They post their best landings, their best radio. I mean, I'm guilty of it, you know. You put out your best self, where that is not the reality. You know, and learning to fly, or anything in aviation where you're doing an engineering qualification, or you're learning to do air traffic control, it's really hard. You know, and you will make mistakes, and that's okay. That's okay. And you'll learn from them, and you'll go on and do other things. I mean, I've made lots of mistakes learning, because that's what you do. You're trying something new that's completely different for you. But that's absolutely fine.
Absolutely.
You know?
And obviously you're still, you know, doing new things, and you know, constantly getting out of your comfort zone by the sounds of it as well. Like, how important do you think that is for
very important women? You got to get comfortable being uncomfortable. And you know, like for instance, the first event I did, you know, before I even had Elevate Her, that was very out of my comfort zone. You know, I'm not that girl. Well, maybe I am now, but but you know, back then I was not. And my family did think I was a little bit nuts. But it was important to me. You know, and you should never let your fear or your conceptions about who you are get in the way of something that's really important to you. You know, like, I never thought I'd be doing this.
I think especially if you're passionate about something as well, and I think, I mean, I guess both of us are very fortunate in that sense, in like what we do, we're passionate about. And I was chatting to a friend about that the other week, because she turned around and she said to me, she was like, you are so lucky that your job is your passion, because there are a lot of people whose job is not their passion. And I also guess in aviation, that is a job that you have to be passionate about, because it's challenging.
Absolutely. And you know, I think really on. I think working in aviation is very much vocational. You know, you feel like you have to do it. Once you feel like you want to be a pilot, once you have that, like, you get bitten by that bug, you have to do it.
Yeah.
And that's great because that means you get the right people doing it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think this highlights probably a broader issue in industry of all the barriers there are to entry.
Yeah.
So, you know, for instance, it is extremely expensive to become a pilot, and that is not gender-based. You know, that is just for everybody. It's very, very expensive.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of other barriers in a way in terms of how many exams we do compared to other countries. I think that's a huge barrier. Now, for instance, private pilot's license like I have is 9 exams. In the US, it's 1.
Yeah.
And the US has an amazing standard of aviating. But, you know, we like to overcomplicate things here. And I think that's a huge barrier. Obviously, the cost is a barrier. It costs every time you do an exam. It costs all the books to, you know, do it as well.
Yeah.
And I do think that the industry really needs to take a look at itself and go, how can we make this easier for people to get into? Because we have a pilot shortage at the moment.
Yeah.
We have shortage across all aviation careers, and we need to get those people into it who want to be into it, who feel like they really want to do this job.
Yeah.
And we're only going to do that if we start looking at how the industry is structured and changing it. And it will be hard, but it's not impossible.
No, exactly.
You know?
Making it more accessible because, you know, as a kid, I remember I had a friend at school and I remember he was doing some piloting lessons and I remember being like, he must be really rich then. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know, obviously, like how much it does cost, but I always saw that as something that rich people do. Yeah,
I mean, I think there is that could be debunked as well a little bit because, yes, getting a commercial license is incredibly expensive.
Yeah.
There's no two ways about it. Getting a PPL is not cheap. You know, it isn't cheap. But there are some really amazing areas of aviation that are very cost effective, like gliding.
Okay.
Gliding is a great way to get into flying, especially for young people. You can solo a glider at 14.
Is that when you have a plane that takes you up and then you do
engine.
it yourself?
Yeah, you're just literally like a bird. It's really, really fun. But again, great way to get into aviation, really cost effective. A lot of clubs also give discounts for like youth members, which is brilliant. Also, there's a huge part of aviation which is really growing up now, which is the light aircraft. So they're microlights, you know, ultralight aircraft. And that whole sector, there's a lot of stuff encompassed in that sector, much more cost effective, very fuel efficient, you know, and it's really is a growth area in aviation. So yes, elements of aviation are very expensive, particularly if you're looking towards the commercial area. But there's also some areas that actually are quite attainable for most people to get into if you want to. You know, or at least to give it a go.
Yeah, exactly.
You know? So, but the thing, we're not very good at marketing ourselves in aviation. We have a lot of great stuff going on, you know, like I've said about sustainability and other areas where we're actually really quite good. And we've made huge leaps and bounds. I mean, if you think aviation's only 100 years old, really, you know, we've made amazing leaps and bounds. But yeah, we're not very good at promoting them.
Yeah. What do you think's been your, like, biggest achievement in what you do, but also, like, the best experiences? Like, what have been, like, your top 3 experiences that you've had whilst flying a plane?
Oh, that's such a tough one.
Because I think even just looking at, like, I can imagine just seeing really beautiful sunsets and that would, do you know what I mean? Like, really beautiful places.
I could pick one from every flight, to be fair. But, you know, best experiences, got to be getting your licence. You know, when you land and you've done it and the instructor goes, you're good. Nothing beats that feeling.
Did you cry?
World. Oh, yeah. I was so emotional. You go, I know, I hate using my journey, but you do go on such a personal journey. And at the end, especially when I got my helicopter license, I cried like the whole way to the pub. You know, I was so proud of myself, you know, that I'd gone through all that and I'd made it. I'd actually done it.
And you didn't give up.
I didn't give up. You know, my dad actually got me, it's really funny actually, before I started learning, he had these helicopter wings. So it was like a H with the aviation wings. And I was like, oh, that's really cool, Pin. Can I have that? And he said, oh, you can only have that when you get your helicopter license. Aww. And then when I did, he gave it to me and I wore them to the pub. And I was like, I am that girl. Like, I did that. You know, so obviously that's got to be top one. Second one has got to be flying in a Spitfire. I was, you know, fortunate to fly in the back of the Spitfire and did some upside down stuff. But for me, that was emotional because you think of all the people.
Yeah.
You know, that's such an iconic aircraft.
Yeah.
And obviously, you know, Remembrance Day was yesterday. It's
Yeah.
quite poignant. But you look at that elliptical wing and that really famous view and you're like, wow.
Yeah.
You know, how many young people saw that view. And for me, that was incredibly emotional. And as well, from a women in aviation point of view, you think of the ATA girls that were given like hardly any training.
Yeah.
And they were just sent off in these aircraft to deliver them, and were, you know, so pivotal in the war and everything that they did and everything they gave up for us. That was very emotional to be in that, and to just feel the same experience in a way that they would have felt. Yeah, was very special. Which is why, you know, one of the reasons why I'm so passionate as well about volunteering with the Spitfires, because I think it's so important that we keep this history alive for the next generation and that they learn about everything that was done. And, you know, we fly so many old boys and they're amazing. Aww. You know, they're so inspirational, and the stories they have, you're like, wow, you're incredible. And they deserve to be remembered.
Yeah.
You know?
I couldn't imagine. That would be... That I would find so emotional, like meeting someone who's obviously like. So do you fly them?
No, I'm just ground crew.
Okay.
So I mean, never say never, but but you know, like that, the flying Spitfire, I flew in the back. So there we have a 2-seater.
Yeah.
And I did a bit flying from the back, which was brilliant. I had an amazing guy who's a good friend in the front, and it was very emotional. And we often find actually people land and they're in, you know, floods of tears, or they've got a family that were related to it, and you know, it is emotional. It really is. And I wasn't prepared for how it would make me feel. So that's got to be, I mean, it might even be number one, I don't know. But definitely that. And I mean, every flight's a great one, but I have loved doing aerobatics as well. Like flying with the Blaze for me was something so different to what I'd done before. And doing all those aerobatics, I was very pleased that I was not unwell. So I think maybe the relief plays into that as well. But, you know, that was just exhilarating.
I tried VA for the first time a couple of weeks ago, and that made me feel sick. Honestly, we did like this bloody Jurassic Park car thing, and I felt so sick. I was like, so I don't know what I would be like.
You know, you probably would be better than you think you would. I mean, certainly I was better than I was expecting.
So what did you do? Like loop-de-loops?
So lots of they were a formation team, so we did lots of loops, barrel rolls, lomshvaks, all kinds of stuff that, to be honest, I don't even know the name of.
Were you just screaming? Were you just going,
No, I just had the biggest smile on my face. They had this one where the one aircraft flies and then you barrel roll round. Oh, so cool. Yeah, so cool. And that I was like, oh, it made me feel alive. You know? It really was very, very cool. So really very lucky that they took me up. But yeah, I mean, honestly though, you could pick a great moment from every flight.
Yeah. Oh my God, I can imagine. So tell people a little bit more about your actual business and like what you do, because obviously we were chatting about, and I saw you post on Instagram about like all the packages you've got going out, which is just absolutely amazing. So tell people a bit more about what it is you're actually doing.
Sure. So Elevate Her is an online resource platform and community which is dedicated to raising the percentage of women in aviation careers globally. So that is kind of our mission statement. You can probably tell I've said that a few times.
Yeah, I love it.
But yeah, that is what we do. So online on our website, which is ElevateHerAviation.co.uk, we have all the information you need to get into aviation careers, whether it's engineering, pilot roles, air traffic control roles. We have a list of, you know, who to follow on Instagram to be inspired, blogs, so much information. We have lots of pages that we do with our partners like British Airways and Draken that have their current opportunities available. Honestly, there are so many pages on the website with all kinds of information all surrounding the aviation industry and aviation careers. Then the second part of what we do is the community and membership. So we have a membership, but it's completely free for life. So we don't believe that you should have to pay to have access to any information or access to a community who's going to support you throughout your whole aviation journey. So that was very important to us when we set out. We now have thousands of members globally. We run events, we run mini socials all over the country, but also further afield. I mentioned earlier too that we did one in Kathmandu in Nepal this year. We also did one in Arizona in the US as well. We run the largest networking event for women in aviation in the UK and Europe, which is great fun.
Yeah.
And we also do a lot of outreach and resources. So we currently supply resources, flyers, all kinds of posters, everything you can imagine, free of charge to schools all across the country. So actually currently we have 30,000 kids who've got access to our materials.
Oh, that's so cute.
And you saw on Instagram all the boxes we have for our first shipment going out, which is really exciting. So anyone who's listening to this and wants some materials for their school or their kids' school, let me know, because we're happy to send them out.
Yeah, 100%. Oh.
Yeah, they're all focused on aviation careers and also like what is aviation?
Yeah.
You know, posters, lots of other things. But yeah, get in contact if you want any.
Yeah, I love that. What do you feel is like the next milestone for you then, or like your your next sort of like personal achievement that's going to be like? Because I imagine as well, like it seems like it's obviously been like a hell of a journey, but you know, obviously where you were 8 years ago to now is like very, very big. So I always find like with me as well personally, and I think a lot of women, we kind of like achieve something and I always just move straight on to the next. Like, do you find you're like that, or do you actually take a minute to like sit back and like, probably when you do stuff like this as well, you actually take a minute and you're like, oh shit, like I've done that.
Yeah.
Like we've done that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very much like you. I don't like dwelling on failure and I don't like dwelling on success.
Yeah.
Because I feel that neither are that productive. Because you may achieve something, but then there is always something else. And, you know, that's great, but come on. Like, but maybe that's just who I am as a person.
Yeah.
But the same with failure. If things don't go well, I'll take a minute to acknowledge, okay, how can we do this better? But then let's keep it moving.
Yeah.
You know, I think that it's important to keep quite level if you can and just remain consistent with you know everything you do. And I'm very grateful to our team. We have an amazing team. There's 17 of us volunteers and they are the most incredible women that I've ever met, and they inspire me daily.
Is it all women on your team as well?
All women.
I love it.
Yeah, all of us, all a mixture of pilots, engineers, air traffic controllers, and they're all just phenomenal. And you know, I'm so grateful to them for their support and their hard work, because they are the driving force behind what we do.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is funny really when I look back. I mean, we've only been going a year and a half.
Yeah, that's
so
crazy.
It has been a wild ride, but in my mind, we're just getting started. So there's no point celebrating now, because we have so much more to do.
Yeah.
And in terms of next goals, it's a difficult one to say. I'm always cautious to put goals in place because my goals often change. I know that sounds bad, but when you're kind of, what you're doing is constantly evolving. I'm sure you get this as well. Yeah. Sometimes if I set myself a goal now for next year, by the time I got there, it might not be relevant anymore.
Things have changed.
Exactly. So, you know, it is a hard one, but for me, as long as we are getting women together, we're connecting them, supporting them, as long as we're doing that outreach to schools and getting, you know, young girls involved, that is the goal. We're constantly doing that.
Yeah.
You know, in a way, anything from here on is a bonus.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah, it's been fun.
And it is like the journey is the achievement. Do you know what I mean? The journey of like going to the schools and stuff like that. I can imagine that being so lovely as well, as like seeing little girls.
Oh my God,
and be like, you like, do you know what I mean? You could be doing this. I feel like you need a calendar. Like that's what you need. You need like a calendar, like you outside your plane. Like I feel like that would be so Christmas calendar.
Christmas calendar. Oh God. No, I mean it is. We do it for our younger selves, and like, you know, for all of the team when we come together and we talk. And a lot of us have had really lovely interactions with young girls, and you're like, wow. And I say to them, like, that one of our team recently, she had a lovely interaction with a really young girl, and I said, you could have changed her life.
Yeah.
Like, you won't even know.
Yeah.
But you could have done.
Yeah.
You know, and that is what matters at the end of the day. That is what matters. Those people are what matter.
Yeah.
And let's be honest, the numbers can't get any worse. So, you know, it's all up from here.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%.
You know, like, honestly, the numbers can only go up from here, and they should go up.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I love that as well. And like you say, I always say that to my clients. Like I did a workshop last night, and had all my clients on the workshop, and I was like, right, if there's something you want to share, like share it, because you never know who you can inspire. Like, you never know things you can say, or, you know, something you can share, like whether you're sharing something on Instagram, you know. And obviously, like, social media it can be amazing, but there's always two sides of every coin. You know, there's always that positive and negative, or light and dark, or, you know, all of that sort of stuff. You know, I've definitely found that myself with social media is like, sometimes it could be really, really positive, and then other times, you know, you've got the comparison, and then you've got, you know, people on there as well. Do you know what I mean? Not very nice people on there, you know, and you have to deal with that, but you never know what you sharing something can do. Do you know what I mean? Like, someone might have shared your page, and like, have you had any like really cool stories like that?
I have. I have had people message me directly saying that they had a trial lesson because they were following.
Well, I'm gonna.
Exactly. And, you know, they've gone on to then do their licenses, which is an amazing story. But you're right, it is a double-edged sword. And, you know, I've definitely had my share of negativity on social media from what I've posted. But to me, it highlights why I'm doing this.
Yeah.
You know, because I don't want the next young, like 14, 15-year-old girl to be scared to share her story. That's not right.
Yeah.
You know, I can take it. I'm worn in like an old boot. You know what I mean? Like, I've had the comments, and, you know, it's now on me to do my part to make sure that doesn't happen to someone else.
Yeah.
You know, and I really do truly believe that. It is an amazing tool. I think it will have a really positive impact on the industry as a whole over the next 5-10 years. But it is a real double-edged sword.
Yeah.
And that, you know, it's funny actually. I've never shared anything on my social media that has any of the negativity that I've received on it. I always keep it like really positive. And my parents told me not to post it, but I did a post recently where I shared some of the comments I've received.
Yeah.
And people are like, oh my God, does that happen?
Yeah.
Does that happen still in this industry? And I'm like, yeah, it happens every day.
Yeah.
And actually, it was quite interesting because it sparked a lot of very interesting debate with people as to how this is still happening and why it's still happening.
Yeah.
And actually, that post was quite pivotal for me in thinking sharing those uncomfortable parts is part of the journey as well. Like, that is part of changing the narrative.
Yeah.
Which wasn't something that I literally was willing to do. If you spoke to me a year ago, I never would have posted it.
Yeah.
But yeah, you do have to, unfortunately, some of the uncomfortable stuff you do have to share because it does help change that narrative. And, like, don't get me wrong, honestly, I was overwhelmed by the positive response the post had. So many amazing people, men and women, going, this is really important to share.
Yeah.
Which I was very grateful for. But, you know, it does highlight those wider issues of, you know, the nasty comments you get, and some of them you're just like, why would you say that? Just keep scrolling.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a journey.
Yeah. Bloody sounds like it.
Yeah, it's been a wild ride.
Yeah, absolutely. So, what are some things that I'd love to know, like some things that people wouldn't expect about like aviation or like flying, like whether it be facts or like, you know.
Oh my God,
I'd love to know
now. Do I have any facts? Probably not. I mean, again, I'm a private pilot, so I'm not a commercial pilot, so I'm not very good on statistics and facts around any commercial flying. I don't know. I think you'd just be overwhelmed by the experience of it. It's such a 4D experience that people don't realise. You know, you have the motion, the noise, you know, everything moving at the same time. You know, it's such a 4D experience. And also, I don't think people know how great a community it is, you know, and you always get some people who aren't great in every industry, but overwhelmingly aviation is a really positive space. Yeah. And there is a real community there, and it's funny, like once you've done it, you are a pilot, you are part of that community. There will always be people there who understand what you've done and will be there to pick you up, you know, whenever you're down. It is very close-knit. Yeah. You know, I think I could share some stats in terms of how few women there are in the industry as well. So, you know, like I said, 4.7% of pilots are women. But if you look at aircraft and aerospace engineering, it's down as low as 2%. So it is very low. Yeah. But it doesn't have to stay that way.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, it's not going to, because like I said, there are so many things that have changed already. And we do have an amazing community of women in aviation, and it's been amazing to see that through Elevate Her. Like, I've seen girls who have met up at events and they've got their own WhatsApp groups and they're going off doing their own things together, you know? And that's beautiful. That's so lovely to see. But aviation as a whole is a very close-knit community.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think women need that community, don't they? Like, whatever you're doing, I think women need that community, and also that knowing that there are other women on the same or similar journeys to you.
For sure.
And also, you know, you sharing, you know, your challenges of being like, right, like, you will make mistakes. Like, there are challenges. It's not gonna be perfect. I think, you know, we need to talk about that more, because I think even though we sort of know that, actually allowing ourselves that kind of like grace and, you know, allowing ourselves that space to make mistakes we're not very good at.
Yeah, no, I do totally agree. And it's funny actually you say, like, give yourself grace. I was speaking to a girl recently, and she's an amazing, really, really cool girl. And she was like, oh, you know, I need to be doing this now. Like, I need to have signed up for this course and be doing these exams and have it all, you know, going. And I was like, whoa, just slow down. The steps you've done are amazing.
Yeah.
Like, you are enough. As you are right now, working, how you are working, you're working so diligently, you've got amazing goals that you're going towards, that is enough.
Yeah.
Which is funny, because I will never take that advice for myself, obviously. But, you know, she was more than enough.
Yeah.
Just how she was. And I was like, give yourself time.
Yeah.
You know, this is not going to happen overnight.
No.
But that's fine.
Not a lot of things that are worth having do
exactly.
They?
And I was like, that is fine.
Yeah.
That's absolutely fine. You know, you've got a plan. Yeah. And it's all, you know, you're working to that accordingly, and it will all happen. It will all happen for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? But we're not very good at taking our own advice.
No, I don't think we are. I think I see that a lot with like the women I work with, and like something I actually do with my clients is like they'll say something and I'll be like, right, I want you to imagine like your friend said that to you. And I'll actually do it with them as well. So they might send me a message and they're like, you know, they're looking for, you know, coaching advice, and I'll be like, right, I want you to read that as if your best friend has just sent it to you.
Yeah.
What would you say to her? Yeah. And then they say the complete opposite of what they are saying to themselves.
Yeah, so true. Yeah, we kind of forget that at the end of the day we are our own friend.
Yes.
Like, we are that person that we need to be kind to as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, you know, that especially in, well, all careers, when you have women who want to achieve things and, you know, they're going after it, we are very hard on ourselves. We're very harsh.
Yeah.
And our internal voices can be brutal. Absolutely brutal. You know, you wouldn't, like you said, you wouldn't speak to your friend like that.
No.
But you would speak to yourself like that.
Yeah.
But, you know, at the end of the day, that is detrimental. And I think, you know, like, that's where the support system does come in.
Yeah.
And, you know, it certainly helped me. You know, I'm now surrounded by an amazing group of women all day, every day, which, again, I never thought I'd have working in aviation. But, you know, instead of me going, oh, this was bad, I'm going to berate myself over it, I share it with them and they go, oh, you know, it's fine.
Yeah.
It's all good.
Yeah.
You know.
What are some